Hey everyone, it's the 4-Gun Guy, and I'm running out of my 140 grain ELD-M projectiles. So I've had to go out and try to find some others that I can use for practice and for my PRS matches. That's what we're going to talk about today. I found two candidates, and only these two. So I know you're going to look at these and you're going to say, why didn't you look at some Burgers or some Sierras or any other brands? I couldn't find those. So the two candidates that I have today are the Hornady 135 grain A-tip and the Barnes 145 grain match burner. So what I thought we'd do is talk about some specifics between each one of these projectiles. Then we'll look at the ladder tests, and then we'll have some final thoughts. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Let's talk about the Barnes 145 grain match burner first. So this is how they come packaged. I bought 500. Again, this was what was available, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna just buy 500, and if they work out, then I've got them. And so they come just, packaged bulk in a box. Nothing big. Now, the specifics of this, it's very interesting because this projectile, I shouldn't say the B word, but I did. This projectile actually has a better ballistics coefficient than even the Hornady A-tip, and I'll put those numbers up on the board. Not by much, but it actually does have a better coefficient, ballistic coefficient. Now, let's talk about the differences though. This projectile is 77 thousandths longer than the Hornady A-tip or the ELD-M. A-tip and ELD-M are pretty close to the same length, but this is 77 thousandths longer than the A-tip. So it's a much longer projectile. What did I find out about that? Well, I found that the seating depth for this is much deeper than the A-tip. The A-tip, when we get to it, you'll see I'm probably going to run that about 50 to 60 thousandths off the lands. In our ladder tests, I ran this anywhere from 107 thousandths to 187 thousandths off the lands. And it's because it is so long, and because of that length, this is just what I'm seeing, the ogive is set back a little more, and you have to start it at like 107 thousandths to even fit in the magazine. Now, I usually have a magazine here, but I didn't. With the magazines, I even used my magazine without a binder plate, and you'll be able to see on the magazines. I tell you what, I'll put them up here, and what you'll see is at the end of one, you see a little strip of plastic. I'll point it out to you. That's the binder plate. If you get a magazine without that, you can load a little longer, your cartridge a little longer. Please be careful though that just because you get one without a binder plate doesn't necessarily mean it's going to chamber in your rifle. So just be sure that all those pieces fit together properly. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about on the match burner. Quality-wise, I'll put some numbers up here. They were pretty good quality-wise. I measured 100, so I measured the length of 100. I measured the weight of 100, and these came out pretty good. As I said, I'll put the numbers up here, and you can see that. The other thing is, I use a K&M press and a Wilson seater. So this is how I seat my projectiles, right? Case, primed powdered case goes in, this goes in, the projectile goes in, the top goes in, and then I'm seating the projectile. That worked fine with the match burner. So even though the bullet was longer, I used my same seater that I used for my 140 ELD-Ms. The concentricity after seating was within 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch, so no problems there. All right, let's talk about the Hornady A-tips now. So these are 135 grains. They do have an aluminum tip, I think it's aluminum, on them. And these come packaged a little differently. So these come in a box, 100 to a box, as you can see. They are individually packaged. So you can see this right here. And they've got a little rubber band separated by cardboard. They have a little rubber band here. So when you take that off, there they are, individually packaged. Now, if you watch the Hornady video, what they basically say is that from the time these are manufactured and the time they're packaged, no human hands touch these projectiles. So no human ever touches these until you do to load them. I did 100 of these. I weighed them. I measured the length, and I was astonished at the accuracy of the length. I was a little bit surprised that the weight wasn't as accurate, let's say, as the length was. So the weight difference on average with the match burner and the A-tip were almost the same. I mean, the differences, the highs and lows of the weight, the highest weight, the lowest weight, the average weight, all about the same between these two. So I found that was a little bit interesting. Now, let's talk about seating these things. You're going to go on the Hornady website, and they're going to say, oh, you're getting the A-tip. Well, you need the A-tip seating stem. And it's because it apparently seats better on the projectile all around it and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you get that seating stem, you're going to have to get the Hornady seating die then. And if you're going to get the Hornady seating die, then you're going to have to use your press to seat the projectile. I went through all that, and let me tell you what, that Hornady seating die, not good. I sent it back. I still have the seating stem because I can't get rid of that. But the problem is it's proprietary. So here's what I did. I said, look, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to use my same stem in my same seater here, projectile seater with the K&M press, and let's see how the concentricity comes out. 1 to 2 thousandths. Just the same as my 140s. So I didn't have any trouble seating these using this process. Now, if someone else is going to comment to say, yes, but the seating die, blah, blah, I think that's great. If you want to spend that money and you already use your press to seat, I didn't want to change anything, but I wanted to see if it did make a difference. We're going to see in the ladder test, it doesn't make a difference. I had really good SDs with these, really good ESs, just using my standard process. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about both of these projectiles is, remember, when I'm trying these out, I'm actually using each one of these separately in a cartridge, empty cartridge, to find the lands for this projectile. So remember that. The ogives are going to be different on these things, where they are. So I used the Wheeler method, took my bolt apart, so it just came down freely, and I used that method to find the lands for both of these projectiles. So when I'm telling you that I seated this 167th off the lands, it was the lands that I found with this projectile. When I say I'm seating the A-tips 50 to 60, it's because it's off of the lands I found with this projectile. So please, understand that's how I did this, this test. So with that said, let's get to the ladder test results themselves. Well, I did a lot of ladder testing. So I started out on March 6th with the barns, and these were the results. And I'm going to go back through these with you. So I'm not going to go through every one of these. These were the results with different powder loads, and 107, 127, and 147 thousandths off the lands. And when I switch to the view that I'm showing you this, we'll just talk about the good results there, or the somewhat good results there. Then I came back on 320, and I did another barns test, and an initial A-tip test. The initial Barnes test was with two particular loads and 167 and 187 thousandths, I believe, off the lands. The A-tips, the original test, was 60 thousandths off the lands, and we'll talk about the good ones out of that and those results. And then I did another test, which is this kind of upper quadrant here, of the A-tips on March 28th. And this was a little more, I was trying to refine both the load and the off the land. So I just wanted to show you that I did a lot of testing, went through a lot of and a lot of powder and a lot of primer. So let's get to the actual results, and we'll just look at what was good. Well, let's start with the match burners first. And as you can see, not a lot of really good results here. If you look at like the 41.4 load, you know, great, had some good SDs, some good ESs, but the groupings were not fantastic. I did find something around, you know, the 167 to 187 thousandths off the lands. I had a 0.42 grouping there and a 0.60 grouping there. So that's probably where I'm going to play around with this projectile going forward. But really nothing jumped out at me. Now look at the 41.7 real quick, and you can see that was a good group. 0.33, SD was good, ES was pretty good. But then again, when you start looking on either side of that, there's really nothing there, right? Then it blows out to 1 MOA on the left at 127 thousandths and 0.74 on the right at 167 thousandths. So, you know, just nothing really good here. But I am going to keep playing with this and see if I can find that really good node for this match burner. Let's look at the A-tips now. Now, again, I did a lot more than this, but this is really the results that I wanted to show you. We really found two nodes here. I'm really happy with what came out of all of this. The first one, as you can see, is at 41.1. Really good groups, 0.35, 0.40, 0.45. Look at the SD and the ESs on these. SDs less than 4, ESs less than, 7. That is fantastic. This is a fantastic node, and this is most likely where I'm going to be loading these things. But I also want to show you or talk to 41.3. At 41.3, more fantastic groups, more fantastic SDs and ESs. So here's what this is telling me. It's telling me that I should be confident between 41.1 and 41.3, 60 thousandths off the lands. And if I'm really over a little bit or under a little bit, I should be fine. I'm going to do one last final test at 41.2, and I'm going to do 50, 60, and 70 thousandths just to verify that this is one nice big juicy node. And then if it is, which it should be, I'll probably be loading 41.2 and just go from there. 41.2, 60 thousandths off the lands, and I should get some fantastic results. Well, I can tell you that I did go back up to the range. I loaded 41.1, 60 thousandths, just like you saw in the ladder test. But this time what I wanted to do is check against the Kestrel and everything. So just kind of zero things in. So I downloaded the custom curve for my Kestrel from Applied Ballistics, put that in there, got to the range. My wife spotted me. We went out to about 850 yards, which is about the beginning of the transonic range for what I'm shooting here. And everything was great. I didn't have to adjust a thing, guys. It was fantastic. I was hitting vertically, that is. I was hitting center of the 3 MOA target at 850 yards with these things. So very, very happy about that. So for final thoughts, look, A-tips, yeah, they won hands down. Remember, they're twice as much as these barns. So you're going to pay for these things to be that accurate. What else did we learn? We learned that I did not use the custom Hornady seating stem with these. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying I found that I didn't need to. And I told you that from a concentricity standpoint, I was 1 2,000ths off, which is my normal for even the ELD-Ms. And I didn't need to use that, that seating stem. You saw the results with the SDs and the ESs with these things. Across the board, there were no huge or bad SDs and ESs. They were pretty much all fantastic. So my new match bullet, when I can find them, if I can find them, the match burners, look, you know, it didn't turn out as well as I had hoped it would, given that the BC on these is better than the A-tips. I think they've kind of gotten out of whack with the length of these projectiles, but I'm going to still play around with these. I'm going to do some more ladder tests, some more loads. I'm going to see if I can find some type of a node, and if I can, then maybe I'll use these for practice, you know, close-in practice, say out to 500 or 600 yards, and we'll go from there. So hey everybody, I want to thank you for watching. I have some great stuff coming up. I'm going to do a spotting scope review, suppressor review, and you'll be surprised at what I'm putting that suppressor on and why. I've got a zero compromise scope review, a Athlon MTAC scope review that I put on my wife's Bergara, a 6.5 Creedmoor. And then I've got a really good video that it's going to take me a while to work on it, but I want to get up to the range and do an environmental video. I have my wind video, if you've seen that. If you haven't, go look it up. It's kind of cool. But this environmental video is one that I want to really walk through with you, especially if you're beginning in PRS, the options you have to address the environmentals around you. Wind, direction, temperature, pressure, all of that. There's a lot of options out there, and you can start simple and you can work your way up to, say, a Kestrel 5700 if that's where you want to end up with. But that's going to be a really cool video. So thanks for watching, everyone. Again, I appreciate the likes, the subscriptions, all the great comments. I like the kindness of our community. I really do appreciate that. And until next time, shoot straight.
I may say that.